On today's episode of Water Cooler Weekly, we are joined by Ayden Hurst. Ayden jumps on the show to talk about his career in rugby, touching on the highs and the lows, and the ever-changing road which has taken him all over the world. He speaks about the difficulties and sacrifices that he and his family had to make and how it has molded his work ethic and outlook on life. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to wherever you are listening or watching this episode too. But for now, let's turn it over to Ayden. All right, it is my pleasure now to welcome on the man with the biggest and ugliest head in Lindenwood Lions history, Ayden Hurst. Ayden, thank you very much for joining me today, mate.
Mate, Boz, thanks heaps. Great intro. Do appreciate that.
I'm actually pretty happy with that, so that's a perfect way
Good
to
man.
start. First off, mate, how you going? You're over in the US of A at the moment. Things are obviously pretty great there. Just maybe just give us give a rundown on what the landscape's like for you and how things have been going with school.
Yeah, so I'm currently in my last year at Lindenwood University, so we're about 20 minutes outside St. Louis. For those that don't know, quite a small school. All the classes are online. At the moment, which is quite tough. Be a bit of a change. And then sport has actually been canned for the semester. So I play rugby here, and we're still training, but we're not playing. So look, it's tough and it's hard being away from home and all of that. But look, at the end of the day, it's just a weird time, and they're doing their best they can. But yeah, it's just very, very different college experience for the first 3 years I had. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I had the extreme pleasure of attending the heart of Missouri for a week, and we're not going to touch on a lot of the stuff that happened during the week I was there, but boy, oh boy, wowee.
That good little time.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting experience, and we will touch on that because it is. I think a lot of people probably they probably see college football and they see people playing. They see Australians, kicking some, pigskin around in front of 100,000 people, and they're like, "How good is this?" But there are a lot of Australians, whether they're playing rugby, tennis, baseball, whatever, hopscotch. Who are on scholarships as well, but playing in sort of not as glamorous situations, and not to say your situation's not glamorous, but it is very difficult. And we will touch on sort of, how tough it can be to be a college athlete. But first off, you did mention there that you did play rugby, which is why you're in Lindenwood. I guess first off, what we'll do is we'll start when you first got into rugby, how you got into it. My earliest memory of you is you were just a little bit of a fat mess as a kid. So
Dad worked for Nestle, mate. The free Kit Kat today didn't really work too well.
you absolutely took advantage of that.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you ever like look at yourself now and go like, where is that little fat mess?
Yeah. I know, but look, I think we all go through that little stage, but that wasn't the little stage for me at all. That was a prolonged stage. I remember the turning point was I was doing a 2K time trial for a cricket team, the Falcons, and I came last, and I got in the car and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, and just lost it all.
That's a nice little flex. That's a nice little flex on the Falcons mention. Probably important for me to mention that I did play for the Don Valley Cricket Association rep side as well in my last year of junior cricket. But anyway, let's jump into
those were the days.
Those were the good days. Let's jump into your how you started with rugby. I know you played at Ivanhoe Grammar where you attended school. Let's find out when you first started playing and what your early experiences were.
So rugby has kind of always been a part of Dad being from Bathurst in New South Wales. He grew up playing it. And then, so Mum was a really avid netballer, aerobics and stuff, but she's actually from Perth. So long story short, she actually taught me how to kick a footy and handball. Not bad.
Interesting.
So
Scott's no good with the footy.
He's all right. He thinks he's okay. He can hoist them, but it's just not really accurate. Just run in a certain direction, you're not going to get it. But no, my earliest memories of rugby were I would walk around with Dad's headgear on when I was like 3 or 4 years old, like living in Thailand and back living in Oz. I'd always walk around with his headgear on, like Wallabies jerseys. Like I was just always growing up with rugby. But obviously moving to Melbourne, it's AFL, isn't it? So started off playing at Montmorency Magpies, played there, and then I think I was 11 or 12, and I just sort of rolled up to Eltham with 3 games to go in the season in under 12s and said, hey, do you mind if I come and join? So played rugby on the Saturdays and then AFL on the Sundays for about 2 or 3 years. Then got offered on scholarship to go to Ivanhoe Grammar, and that was sort of an all-round sports scholarship. So they had a rugby team there, but in Division 2, like school stuff, it's not really the best. But the thing is, though, is like just such an avid, like small community. So played there for a little bit, gave up on AFL, sort of had to pick a direction. And then, it's that moved to Ivanhoe Grammar that year. I made the under 15 state side, which I was quite lucky to. I actually broke my jaw in a game for them. I think it was like 8 or 9 weeks before we were going to play nationals. So I told them, like, all right, get me in, wire my jaw shut, and then take it off 2 weeks before so I can go back and play. So they were actually told not to pick me because apparently, like, I couldn't mentally get over it. Like, this is what they were being told. But when you're that young, you're that dumb, you just have an opportunity like that, you just throw your body at it. And then from there, it just, I don't know, I just started to fall in love with it. Cricket, as you would know, hit the back burner for me. And it was just rugby since then. So that was, 16 stateside, then 17s Rebels, 18s Rebels bottom age, and then was lucky to captain the 18s Melbourne Rebels at Schoolboys in 2015. So that was a huge honour. And I was quite heavily involved with the Melbourne Rebels then as well, just with their programs. They had like an elite player program. So that was really good. I learned utmost being around people like that, like walking in and seeing like James O'Connor, Curtly Beale, Sean McMahon, like just you walking in as they were walking out kind of gave you like that good incentive, you know what I mean? And then 2 years of under 20s.
Something to aim at.
Yeah. And the thing is when you're sort of training away from that and you're that young and you're starting like your mates are starting to like drink and go out and party when you're 15, 16 and that, I know personally, if I didn't have that sort of anchor and something in front of me like that, I don't know if I would have been as committed. But like the thing I can look back is, it didn't work out with me in Super Rugby and all that stuff. But like injuries happen. Like I've had a shoulder knee, jaw reconstruction by the age of 19. And I can just look back and say I just wasn't what they wanted. It's not that I wasn't good enough. It just didn't work out. But I can say that I gave everything as well. That went into my last 2 years of under 20s with the Rebels.
Yeah, right.
So most of the boys that ran out yesterday were boys like Taniela, like played against Taniela Tupou. Like I was on the bench. I was on the bench and he got carted off. Thank God. But so look, it's definitely one thing I can say that I look back and really enjoyed. Loved my time. Just wasn't what they wanted. But this opportunity, Lindenwood, like I've always wanted to come to college in the US, and then to be able to do it playing the sport you love, mate. Like why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back. Let's go back a couple of steps. I want to ask you something about the draw and something that you said there, where you were like, I was young and dumb. There's an opportunity, and I'll do anything for it.
Yeah,
I think that's a really interesting thing, and it's something you do see in, say, rugby or UFC, and you're like, how are these guys playing or fighting or whatever? I just used UFC as another example there.
Yeah.
Or even ice hockey is a really good one. I obviously never did that because if I like broke a toenail, I was like, I'm on the fritz for 3 to 4 weeks. But that's really interesting that you said, you were like, oh, my jaw's broken. And you were like, I don't give a shit that my jaw's broken. I need to get out here. This is an incredible opportunity. As you've gone on, do you think that you still have that same mindset?
Yeah. And I think that's just a personal thing. Oh, sorry, I keep going.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, like, you know, and if it wasn't, where do you think, you know, along your career, and I know we've jumped ahead a little bit, but we will
No,
go
it's fine.
back at it, you know, at any stage in your career, because you've just mentioned, you know, before the age of 19, you've had a shoulder, knee reconstruction, and you've had your jaw wired. It's very easy to sort of go, I'm not really that, uh, happy to continue having my body
Yeah.
absolutely destroyed while my friends are, you know, out and about, chasing girls unsuccessfully. Josh Saunders.
Yeah. There's one. There's
There's
one.
one.
Keep him
There's
coming.
one.
Keep him coming.
Yeah.
Keep him coming.
But you know, it'd be very easy, and I think a lot of people in that situation would be like, "This is not for me." Like and I know I was faced with this decision at a few years after 19 because of my knee. Well, just my whole body is bad, but I was never at the level you were. I was just like, this is not worth it. Has that
Yeah.
ever crossed your mind?
For right now, no, not at all. You know me well enough. I wouldn't say I'm stubborn, but if there's an opportunity and it's there to be taken, I'm going to do whatever I can in that sense, whether that's sort of not going out or like being at rehab 3 times a week or anything like that. Like there's ways and means to sort of get to where you want to go. And look, ultimately the path hasn't really been easy, but yeah, it is quite tough. It's funny. So it's not really funny, actually. The jaw, I broke it in Adelaide. The x-ray machine was broken in Adelaide. Walked around for a week with my jaw broken. And I went to mum one day and was like, oh, I can't really bite down. Oh, I didn't. It was more of a, like, I couldn't talk. Like my face had started to swell. Like it was not good. And she, not meaning to put her in it, she was kind of just like, oh, it's just a bit of swelling, you'll be fine. And I turned on my nah, and like, so you know when something's up.
Yeah.
And then went to go get looked at by my orthodontist because I had braces at the time, and she's like, I'm not touching that. You need to get emergency surgery. And I was in that night. And then the shoulder as well, was told it was just kind of like a bit of a labral tear, played on it. That was at 18's year. So my final year of high school, it was Monday to Friday training, some in the morning. So I would drive, my parents, like this is what I'm saying as well. Like I kind of don't owe it to them, but they would get up at 4:30, drive me to Princess Park in Carlton. Then after I finished training, they'd take me to school. Then I'd do that 3 times a week, and then I'd train after school, and then would play on Saturdays, and then train for state on Sundays. So it was just relentless. And then, shoulder was really sore. I would tackle, it would come out. I would open a water bottle, it would come out. And
That's not what you want when you open a bottle of water.
Take your sheets off the bed. I was at this tournament in Sydney. And so we had the Waratahs the first day, and then the Reds the second day. First, and this was when I was captain, and just got a hit, and I knew something wasn't right, and was told, no, you're fine. And it was really tough for me because I'd trained 3 years to get to this, to get looked at by Australian schoolboy selectors, had been spoken to by my coaches saying they were looking at me, this, that, the other. Rolled in hot as captain with quite a good Victorian side, which was quite rare. I know we pushed the Reds, we beat the Brumbies, we beat the Force. Like, we were a great side. And to just know I couldn't give 100%, because I knew something was up. And as well, like, there's a difference between like a little tweak. And it actually turned out about 2 months later, I'm like, nah, something has to get checked. And I'd actually broken the whole front off my socket.
Yeah.
And you just get to a point and you're like, how was I still able to like
do that?
Like tackle these blokes, play this game, lift these weights with like something like that wrong, you know what I mean? So it's just like, it is a mentality, but it gets sick. You get over it, trust me.
Oh, no, 100%. I think there's one thing you said there is that you're not right. And that's a physical thing, but that's also massively a mental thing.
Yeah.
I played hockey for, I'm not sure how many years, maybe 7 or 8 years. And there wasn't one year that I played where I didn't have a knee injury. And, you know, it got to the last maybe 3 or 4 of those years, not one stage did I play a single game where I wasn't worried about my knee. And like, you know, when you do that, like when you've got that thought in your head, you know, you're probably not going to explode out of the line and try and launch a torpedo tackle at Taniela Tupou.
Tupou,
like,
yeah, exactly.
When he's coming at, like, you're going to be like, whether you like to admit it or not, you are going to be hesitant in some aspects of the game. And that, when you touch on this, when you talk about the stage that you're playing in, you know, this is the biggest stage. This is, you know, it's another opportunity. Like you've got, when you're at this level, you do get the opportunity, but you know, sometimes the opportunities are a lot bigger than what the average person probably understands. And that, you know, if you do get the look into, say, make that Australian schoolboys squad, then that potentially changes your whole career path.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what, like I've said to you at the moment, like I can look back now on just everything with life and just be like, I don't regret a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bad stuff has happened. Not bad stuff, but like just sort of kinks in the road on and off the field. But just being able to look back and say I've taken every opportunity I can is something that I almost pride myself on, in that sense. So yeah, rugby's no different. No different. Yeah. And my outlook has now changed for rugby. I know there's possibilities to go play overseas, not professionally, but still be able to experience different culture while playing a sport I love, getting paid enough, you know what I mean? But then also just meeting new people, mate. That's another thing which I love as well.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get into that because that's something that I really do want to touch on. A couple of things I want you to go into is sort of when you started with the Melbourne Rebels, you started to get involved. That's I'm interested to know what your thought is around, you know, where obviously, you know, you mentioned that, you know, Super Rugby was a dream you had, and you know it wasn't for you, but you know, when you first started with the Rebels, what were you thinking? You are being recognised, whether or not Victoria has a massive rugby program or not. You're involved with the Melbourne Rebels, who are a Super Rugby club, so you're going to have access to these facilities, you know, coaches, all this sort of stuff to turn you into, you know, the player that you want to become. So maybe touch on sort of, you know, your early days there and how your focus changed, how your goals shifted or whatever.
Yeah. So it's a funny story actually. I played under 15s on the wing. So I was a winger / centre. And then 16s trials came around. And the coach at the time was a guy named Cole, who I still hold in one of the highest regards as like one of the best coaches I've had. He's a Kiwi fella, played for Carney's Monaco and the ITM Cup, this, that, the other. For people that don't know, it's like VFL. It's just really good standard.
It's sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's actually incredible standard. Like I don't think people
ridiculous, like, stupid standard.
Yeah, incredible. Like you get All Blacks playing in it like regularly.
If you're coming back from injury, you're going straight to that. So early on in my rep career, to have a coach that had done that was also really big. So we had 2 really good centres. One of them was playing with the Storm at the time. I think sort of came over, boy from NZ, and then another boy, Shone, who's now playing in Japan professionally. He was with the Rebels for a while. Now he's in Japan. So had these 2 boys at centre, and kind of got given the chat of, we want you in the side, but you're not going to play at centre. And it was kind of, mate, the size of these boys at that age, mate. I was a beanpole rolling around. Yeah, I'd throw my head in, but at the end of the day, dude, like when you got hit by them, you stayed hit. Yeah. And then Cole turned around to me one day and was like, we don't have a 7. Would you want to play flanker? And for me, like, that was daunting. Like, seeing what they did. Like, when you think of 7s, you think of like blokes like David Pocock, Richie McCaw, blokes that like come out looking terrible after games of footy. Just because of the position. You're in and around the dirty stuff, you know what I mean? And me being me again, obviously I had a chat with Scott. I think you can imagine what he said. Yeah.
He's like, you already look ugly. He's like, you already look ugly. You can't get worse.
You're already busted as it is. So just put your head in there. So, look, I've got to give myself some credit. At an age of 16, like the boys I was coming up against, I've been playing that position for a while and got myself a spot on the team, which was really good. Then that year got asked to stay around, and then the next year there was a Junior Gold Cup sort of scenario. But touching on that question, like, the focus narrowed once you'd make teams that you never really thought you'd make.
Yeah,
you start
especially in a position. In a position that you've only just sort of played recently.
So you get that, you start to get that belief, which means things that were important to you aren't important anymore. Like sort of going out with your mates, staying up late, stuff like that. You know what I mean? I can't say that at the moment, mate. We do enjoy being here.
That's off campus. There's nothing wrong with that.
But the thing is, so at that age, I'm kind of glad it happened then. So and this is what I'm saying about this injury was just so annoying. The whole last year of high school, I didn't drink.
Yeah.
Didn't drink a drop. Gave up that stuff. Had a girlfriend at the time. She was really supportive in regards to that stuff, which was good. But we were even told, like, if you've got a girlfriend, get rid of her. If your boys want to get on the beers, get rid of them, you know what I mean? So they just wanted you, and they gave you the best environment to get the best out. So if you're not giving that back to them, they didn't really want to put that into you, which is, I think, is fair enough, mate.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat there.
I had incredible coaches, had some really good stuff like that, but then obviously that focus had never really shifted until probably that last year of 20s. And we kind of got told you can't study and play. And I'm like, hold on, like there's life after footy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is one thing, especially Fran, mum, my beautiful mother, was just hammering into me, just there's life after footy, especially the injuries I'd had, you know what I mean? Like it's not be all end all, and then so it was just, that focus then shifted from, all right, might be tough to get a gig here. What's next? And that's the scariest question. That's one of the scariest questions you can give a 19-year-old that spent 7 days a week playing footy, to then be told, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And the what's next question, you're kind of like, because mate, before Lindenwood, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, we had... I was
studying at Swinburne, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had Liam Hunt on, someone and, he was sort of... He touched on this, when he wasn't drafted, he was sort of like, shit, I put all my eggs into one basket. I don't know what's going to happen here. And much like him, you were faced with the same situation, and you stayed in the sport, and you found, I mean, this is just my opinion, I think you found the right way, and I think he found the right way. And, we'll get into this, now, but I thoroughly agree with your mother, Fran, and considering she'll be watching this, I wouldn't say that I won't agree with it.
Perfect. Otherwise, you'll get a knock at your door. You're in the 5K radius, so you're not safe, mate.
No, that's perfect. But no, education is absolutely crucial. I'm a strong believer that if you're in the position to get yourself a free education, then absolutely you have to take that seriously. Think about that, because that's not an opportunity that a lot of people come across. I know someone like myself, I would have absolutely, and it wouldn't have mattered where it was, mate. I would have gone to a school in the middle of Alaska.
North Dakota State.
North Dakota is a great hockey environment, so I would have loved that. But that could have been for badminton, hopscotch.
Don't mind.
And cornhole,
and that's
whatever.
And that's just one thing that I've had to sort of like sit back and tell myself, because I don't know if many of you people would know about St. Louis, but when it's hot, it's hot, and when it's cold, it's cold. And when you're walking up to the training field, and it's -30 outside, and you're wearing like more layers than you can probably put on and still move around efficiently, you sort of start to ask those questions when you're sick in your dorm room, when you got homework that you don't want to do, like you just start, but then you got to realize like there would be so many people that would kill for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to level your head and sort of get to a point where you have to realize how lucky you are, because look, a lot of the, especially athletes, like we've worked for this, you create your own luck in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
We've said yes to the opportunity, and we've got to do what we can to sort of make our way with it. And yeah, I've loved every second of Lindenwood, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's
best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. When you think of Christmas holiday destinations, St. Louis is not probably high on many people's list, but
yeah, and if it was, you can do it for 180 on that one.
if it was, you can quickly change your mind on that.
I think you can vouch for that, Chris.
Yeah, but look, it's interesting. Whereas,
and you saw the best bits,
mate. I absolutely loved my time there.
So much fun.
Would I take my hypothetical wife and kids there? Probably not. But one thing I did leave. Sort of leave St. Louis a thought with was this would be perfect for, say, me in a college athlete sort of environment. It's off the grid. You're sort of under the radar, and it's, you've got a good mix of guys you're playing with, really good. You've got enough to get by and live a really good life, but you've also got, you've got enough that won't distract you. And so you can keep your head down.
I couldn't go to UNLV, like Vegas. I couldn't go to University of Cal, Berkeley. I couldn't go to a school like that. And I think we all agree. So most of my team is pretty much international. Got boys from Oz, NZ, South Africa, boys from Spain, like all around, you know what I mean? And I think we all kind of agree that, it's enough here. Lindenwood's actually technically a dry campus. So that's another thing as well. So
yeah, right. Yeah, they're doing a really good job policing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the fact that they get paid for each student that gets you anything, but I don't know. It's just, so this is what I'm saying as well. There's not a chance in France I could go to a school like that and still do well.
Yeah, no, that's good. Let's touch on what you're studying, and maybe the difficulties around, because you mentioned that training 7 days a week leading up to this, everything was just rugby. Now the training is still, like, the training routine is still pretty nuts. But now it's also like you're a full-time athlete. Like, there's no difference between you and Joe Bloggs from born in St. Louis, who's gone there to do his politics major. Like, you have the same sort of classes, same sort of work ethic. You have to have the same sort of work ethic as them, as well as managing to be an athlete as well. Yeah.
So I actually started studying at Swinburne in Melbourne. I did a year and a half there. I was doing communication design. I left school really enjoying like designing communications and whatnot, marketing, sales. And I just, I changed quickly out of that. I didn't really enjoy drawing a pair at 7 different perspectives.
That's kind of what your head looks like.
Yeah, a bit busted though.
Yeah.
Got over to Lindenwood, saw they have a really good marketing and advertising department, and decided to jump into that. So talking shit for a living, how good. Not even that, just if you're going to do a degree like that, America's the place to do it. You're bombarded with selling, advertising, marketing. It's just everywhere you look, it's just down your throat. And I've got 2 really good head professors. So I'm in my last year of doing my advertising degree, which is really good. Absolutely love it. Good real world experience as well. And the thing I love about Lindenwood as well is, I think my largest class size is like 25 people.
Yeah.
Smallish school. Get to know your teachers. You get to know your classmates. I've sat in lecture theatres with 500 people where they ask for your student number, not your name, to see if you're there. And that's just, it's not how I learn. I think it's how a lot of people learn. So I think
Mhm.
I'm quite happy to be in a sort of a bit of a small scale environment in that sense. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched on that with another person, had on Brent Ryan, when he mentioned that, the classes that, obviously I'm not comparing you to, the people at Youth Justice Centre, but those classes, had sort of 4 or 5 people in, and he said that, you can tell that that's when they start to take in what's being said, and they just learn better. And I think,
Yeah,
some people will obviously find a way to learn, is they're just, more intelligent than piss ants like you and me.
yeah, that's how I may.
But like, I'm definitely in the same boat where, if you have that sort of small class where you can have that rapport with a teacher, it just makes the learning process like a million times easier.
Tenfold. And the thing is, I can never fly under the radar being the only Aussie with a huge head in the classroom. So I'm always getting picked out by the teachers. So
And
I
the
haven't
loudest
really had a
voice.
teacher. Yeah, or you miss.
Yeah.
But there hasn't really been a teacher here that I've actually not gotten along with really well. So yeah, it will be weird to leave, but I think I am ready to go. Yeah, I think I'm done with the studying, that's for sure. I'm ready to learn a bit real world.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a really good way to segue now into something that you touched on before with you mentioned that your rugby path is not over, and that
Yeah.
just because maybe when you were growing up you were like, it's Super Rugby or nothing. um you have opportunities to, and you know what, you might not be making bank, but you can go to places like Japan, France,
Yeah.
the UK, and
Yeah.
if you're good enough, you'll get the right support to get by, have a job,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and get to enjoy an experience that most people have to pay tens of thousands to do when they go on their Kentucky to sail Croatia.
Yeah.
Like Josh Saunders. Josh Saunders is definitely one of those
Yeah.
sail Croatia
100%.
sort of operators. But
He'd
yeah,
take his car to sit on the ferry.
oh,
He'd take
100%.
the AMG, 100%.
Um, I
Plastic
actually,
keys around.
I messaged Josh I say, have you got anything that you want to say? I was like, is there any story like worth mentioning? And he goes, hey mate, nothing worth mentioning, but I think it's very impressive to see that his work ethic is probably half of what mine is, and he's really successful. So really weird, interesting
Now,
individual. Sort of just asking
if
him
that's a
for,
backhanded if that isn't a backhanded compliment, I don't know what is.
yeah. I mean, I asked him for a story about you, and he just sort of wanted to touch on the fact that he's got a really good work ethic, which was really weird. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
again, bit of me time.
yeah.
Bit of me time
He can't handle not being in the
in the
spotlight.
spotlight. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
his ears are probably burning as we speak. But
Oh,
no, look, mate.
100%.
The next thing for me, I actually had this exact chat with my parents the other day. Again, dreaded. What's next?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just worse that it's over a Zoom call now. Well, it's almost a bit better, just in case I'm getting sick of it. I can turn it off if they're annoying me. But
Put it on mute.
yeah, put it on mute, Sharp Scott. Yeah, what's next? So, as you know, and a lot of people close to me know, I've spent the last 2 summers in England. Sort of, again, this is what I'm talking about, opportunities. My parents came to visit me 2 years ago here, and it was just before the breakup for the long break. So from May until September, summertime over here. And my parents were like, well, don't just come home, like go do something, like stay
Mm.
here. And that's another thing I'm really blessed with. Like my parents are so supportive. Like as long as like they're just supportive of anything I do. And that's one thing I'm very, very lucky with in that sense, that I can call them up one day and be like, hey, look, like I'm thinking of doing this. And they'll challenge me, but not for the fact of they don't want me to do something. It's more just to know that I've thought about it, ticked every box I can. So when I do these certain things or go these certain places, I'm not left stranded, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to England for the last summer, then the summer that just went during COVID. Played cricket out there and got some really good connections, both on and off sporting. So look, I'm hoping to get over there. I'm only about 45 minutes from London, so hoping to take my degree over there as well. And look, once you work in a place like London, mate, you can almost work anywhere. So rugby over there as well. That would be. I've always really wanted to play in England. Great standard, like you said, can go play for a National 1, National 2 side, get enough money to live off with a roof over my head, a job. And then if I want to duck over to Amsterdam for the weekend, or I want to go visit mates in Spain or something, I can do that. You know what I mean? And that's the immediate. If something else pops up, Major League Rugby as well. There's a new big MLR that's taking off. So look, I've got a couple of teams that I would love to hear something from. I'm going to start putting myself out there a little bit, which would be nice. So there's a few teams in sort of Toronto, San Diego, Seattle, that sort of area of the world, which I'd love to take that opportunity. It's another thing. But it's what you were talking about before. I'm trying not to have all my eggs in one basket, but then also make sure that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all those processes have started, and making sure that I can use that degree to put it to good use. So, yeah. That's just the immediate plan. But, yeah, no time soon am I looking to come back to Oz for a prolonged period of time. I'm trying to exhaust this, especially post-COVID. It's given me a real sense of you can work so hard or so long for something, and then just like that, it's
gone.
You would know more than anyone. So I'm just, while these opportunities are there, I want to put myself in the best position to sort of take a hold of those opportunities.
Yeah, and look, obviously I'm not going to speak for you, but I think you've got the exact right approach. I'm a firm believer in, if you have even the smallest of itches, scratch the shit out of it. So, I saw firsthand my time living in Toronto, just how big rugby was. And, I've been a rugby league fan my whole life. Only sort of the last maybe, 5 or 6 years started to really come around to union. But the rugby experience that I saw in Toronto was honestly the most enjoyable. Like, it was the funnest atmosphere I've ever seen. You've got, and I think this is the coolest part about the rugby in America is you've got this grassroots footy stadiums. So you're really super interactive with the players. Like, you're really close. Everyone's absolutely waffled. And then the players come out and drink with you after. They got DJs playing. I'm like, is this rugby league, or am I at the Mirage nightclub in Vegas?
The thing is no matter where you go, and I found this with cricket as well. So I moved over to England, never been before, never been to Europe, didn't know anyone. All of a sudden, I had a roof over my head, boys to drink with, places to eat. And rugby and cricket are very similar like that. No matter where you go in the world and you pull up at a rugby club, you got boys to drink with, you got a place to stay, you got food on the table.
Connections.
So 100%. And you never know who you're going to meet. And that's one thing my parents have been really good with. Being an only child, sort of growing up, moving around the world, is I kind of had to talk. And I get a lot of stick for it, but at the end of the day, mate, fair enough. I think it might not be the fact that I talk, it's just the shit chat that I have, one of the two. I'm not sure. Might be a bit of both. But honestly, yeah, take them both. But hey, it's given me some terrific opportunities. I met some great people, and look, I'm not willing to settle down with that anytime soon.
No, I thoroughly support you in that that decision. Australia is obviously, always going to be here, and the fact that you've got that, that marketing degree, and that, you touched on, if you can get a job working in London with, you can come back here and, you'll be able to set yourself up, pretty nicely. It's one thing I do want to touch on is sort of you mentioned your parents, how supportive they are. I think a lot of parents are, sort of do make these sacrifices, and it's no skin off their back. Like, obviously it's you know, they put the time and effort into it. But I think one thing that's sort of, you know, a bit of admiration I have for you is that while most parents would, you know, would do, you know, similar, go to similar lengths for their children, you're not always going to get the same return from the kids to what sort of you've done. You know, it's very, very easy, would have been very easy for you to go over to live the proper college experience and, you know, sort of like, you know, take the piss out of your studying and whatnot. But, you know, just in the week that I was there with you alone, like, you know, we went out a couple of times and you're like, yeah, I got 8 a.m. class and I couldn't move the next day. And you were like, yep, just, you know, it's just a reality. I just got to get on with it. So,
yeah, exactly.
I
they're
do
quite
commend
strict
you
with
for
that
that.
here as well. Yeah. And mate, look, and like I said though, you find a way. If you're gonna go for a few beers, and if you have to be up for training, one thing my mum has, and again, my mum, if you put it in your mouth, you pay the consequences. You know what you're up to.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You know what you have the next day. So don't put yourself in it. You know what I mean? So look, yeah, the 8 a.m. classes when you're not at peak mental capacity is quite hard, but mate, you just got to get it done.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, when you're a bit slim dusty, I think that probably separates a lot of people from you know, when you're playing, say, a club sport to potentially playing at the next level, whatever that is that ability to sort of like say no to the finer things in life, and or if you're or if you are saying yes, you know, you've got to be prepared to work your bag off the next day.
Yeah, that's more me. But it's not even that. Like at the moment, man, it's quite tough, and I think all the boys are coming back to school this year, because when you come back and you see the boys, you've got the boys are returning and new lads. And there just wasn't that sense this year of like excitement that there always has been because of COVID. Like you can only have a certain amount of people in their houses. We have like a curfew when we can go out, stuff like that. So it was quite tough to not have that excitement to come back and like sort of socialise, because that's again one of the best things that Lyndon was done, is allow me to sort of socialise. But when you're all in it together, when you're all like, oh shit, we have class tomorrow, or crap, we have, okay, yeah, maybe not the best idea, or then one of the boys says, oh, come on, like, let's do it. Oh, yeah, all right, no worries. You know what I mean? It helps you're in a position with other people to do it as well. It definitely makes it easier to make that decision, right or wrong.
Yeah. While we're talking about this year, I know you mentioned at the start that, you know, you're training, but the season's been cancelled. How tough is that to, you know, constantly? I'm not sure how cold or hot it is, but, you know, when it gets to those cold days, you know, with no games to look forward to, how tough are those trainings going to become?
Yeah, it's already started cold. It's getting quite cold now as we speak, if I'm honest. But yeah, look, I've spoken to my coach about this as well. I personally am finding it really tough. I don't know, a lot of boys are, because I got a memory last week. Last week, mate, I was playing at the US Army Academy at West Point, New York, playing on Hudson River. And then had Navy, the American Navy Academy the week after, traveling to Atlanta, doing all this stuff, you know what I mean? So it is very hard. And I think a lot of people are in this position at the moment. Like I know rugby in England's been sort of set back again to the start of 21. And when you train, normally when I've been training, you've had these sort of, there's been light at the end of the tunnel, but now it's just, but we all have a goal, especially our seniors, because we were in a really good position last year to get ourselves at least into the national championship game.
Yeah.
And the season just got taken like that. So there's always going to be a bit of unfinished business in that sense that a lot of us are sort of looking to do, because we technically believe we have the squad, the roster, the boys on their feet, the boys behind, like the new coach, like the coaches, the coaching staff, like the physios to win it all. And if we don't, one, don't have that opportunity, or two, don't fulfill that promise to ourselves, I kind of feel like I'll leave sort of Lindenwood always with something like missing.
Yeah.
So again, it's just at the end of the day, like when we get told next semester whether we can play or not, if we get told we can play, I think you're going to have a bunch of boys who are head down, ass up, like, let's get this done, because enough mucking around in that
Yeah.
sense. But
Finish
yeah,
the job off.
the coaches have done an incredible job, mate. Like, we're training in little like sort of squads relative to our position, starting to get some, and the coaches have done a terrific job
Yeah.
to keep us up and about, which is quite hard for a lot of other teams. I know that for sure.
Yeah. One thing I do want to ask you is, do you ever sort of, look at, say, college football games? I know I touched on it before, and say, you see
Yeah.
150,000 or 100,000 people like screaming out, and you're kind of like, I'm a college athlete, and that's sort of, I kind of wish that was me.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
One thing that I enjoy doing is working behind closed doors. I enjoy the shit that no one sees. That's how I play my rugby.
Mm-hmm.
I do this stuff a lot of people don't want to do. And look, I think J. Cole says in one of his songs, excuse me, but the fame of the fortune, or maybe not the fortune. Because one thing I know, the fame is exhausting. And dude, like, imagine just like rolling into class and you got a guy or people who have watched you on a Saturday and they're just going to criticize you. Like, mate, I couldn't imagine rolling over to my phone and seeing some guy just absolutely ripping into me. Some dude that is sitting on his armchair in the middle of Nebraska sucking back beers.
Yeah.
Coaches, fair enough. Teammates, fair enough. Those, like, I can take that. But I've never had that. You know what I mean? So I would struggle with that personally. We're on like, because Lindenwood's a Division 2 NCAA school.
Mm-hmm.
So our football and basketball play Division 2. But then on top of that, we're not even an NCAA sport. We're called like a student life sport. So like our funding, our pool in the school. So if we want to train, but then girls soccer wants to train, they'll get the head over us because they're an NCAA sport. So it's just stuff like that. There's trials and tribulations and all that stuff that sort of come along with that. But at the end of the day, it means that we're not sort of in the spotlight as much.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the rugby boys at Lindenwood have a nice little name for themselves anyway, and we've got a nice little squad that turn up and watch, and a lot of the alumni come back. So, yeah, long answer, no. I'm not. Short answer, no. I'm not really jealous. I don't know. I'm not really that kind of bloke, but because I know a couple of boys. I know we have some mutuals of some boys that have played sort of at Hawaii and stuff like that, and kind of know. And I met up when I went to visit University of Illinois on a trip, and I met up with an Aussie lad there. I didn't even know him at the time, but bumped into him at the bar, and he was actually the punter for Illinois, and sort of got to know him, Blake. And he kind of just said, "Yeah, it gets a little old. Like, it does a little bit, but still love what they do." But
I asked a friend of mine, Brett, who was over like doing cross country running there, and I asked him, do you ever, you're running in the middle of West Texas or wherever he was, like in front of 15 people, like do you ever sort of want to run 15 laps in front of a decent crowd and get you motivated rather than 3 people sort of having a conversation? But no, it's a very interesting thing to sort of think at and look at. What you touched on there, we do have a few mutual friends. I gave a college football a small crack at one point when my knee was somewhat held together. And mate, if I'll be honest with you, when I blew out my knee, I knew I was never a highly regarded prospect, and I was never going to play at in front of big crowds. But I'd be lying if I said I watch these college games with guys I either trained with or know, and they're running out in front of these massive crowds, and I'm just like, what about me? It isn't fair. Like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I
think if I was playing football, it'd be very different. I don't know. I'll be lying to say if I didn't want to play in front of 80,000 people at a place like Eden Park or something like that, that would be
Yeah,
just incredible. But the whole college just gets a bit beefed up, doesn't it? It's
it does.
just,
Yeah, it's a bit
yeah.
much
I think I
sometimes.
think it's a bit. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you said it. You wank.
Yeah. All right, mate. That was yeah, that was a really good chat. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to touch on. Anyone you wanted to mention or throw under the bus?
Oh, no, I think we've done Saunders a bit too dirty anyway. But
No,
no,
I
I
think
think
he
it's good
deserves it.
to. Yeah, exactly. But no, look, I don't think anyone's really going to listen to me. But look, if there's anyone that's sort of listening and sort of in that position that you have to move away from home or you need to do stuff like that to just sort of get to an end goal that you've been working for, just stick your finger out, have a go. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no. It's always one man's opinion, especially with sport, job.
Yeah,
You can't get too wound up, but just give it a go. Just don't leave a stone unturned. But I think it's good that you're sort of doing this and chatting to all different people in all different walks. So yeah, no, I've appreciated you sort of coming on the show. It's been good, to be fair, and glad we got a sponsor
yeah.
first
No,
week.
we've got a sponsor which we'll mention in the
I know,
intro. He's not paying me,
massive.
so he's not getting two mentions. But I mean, just before we wrap up, that's one thing we probably should have touched on is you've been away from home now for, obviously you've come back for brief moments, but you've been away from home now for, the best part of probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not for everyone. Like,
yeah,
I did it for, two and a bit, 3 years, and mate, it's tough. It's not for everyone,
yeah,
especially, when it does get cold. Yeah, maybe touch on that, because I'm hoping, and this is kind of what I'm doing this for, is because I want different people on, and I would love for people to listen to this episode absolutely not knowing you, and maybe they know someone whose son is really good at rugby or field hockey or whatever,
yeah.
and they're thinking about it, and then they take something out of this and they're like, you know what, you should probably watch
Should do
this.
that.
You should
Yeah,
watch this, like listen to his, take firsthand on just sort of what life is like. So maybe touch on, sort of the highs and lows that you've really had to go through being away from home for so long.
yeah, for sure. Look, like I've said, I've enjoyed every little bit of it, but then also not going home for the breaks and then moving to England, and especially in a time like COVID, and went through a pretty bad breakup. All you wanted to do was just sit down with your mum and dad and just eat or drink or whatever, and just have a good chat and just know that they're there. But you just sort of pick up on family and friends along the way. And I know it's a pretty cliche term, but like the boys here, like are just now like brothers. I know it's so cliche, but
I mean,
having
you're in
grown
a
up with,
similar situation, right? So, I mean, it's
yeah,
it's it's
well,
completely natural.
we just later. The thing is, like we Barney, we get in arguments, we have a go at each other, but at the end of the day, like when you're living with someone, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? But we would all back each other up, like house each other, take your shirt off your back for your mate. So it's been really good that a lot of the boys are in a very similar situation. And I've been lucky as well. The boys I've met have been incredible, been all around the country, being fed very well, had a lot to drink, had a night, like, no matter where I've been in the world, actually, from the boys I met here, I've had a family, which has been good. But yeah, you do miss the little things. I hope my dog remembers what I look like when I get back. I don't really care about the parents; they'll know. But I miss them heaps a lot. But I just hope the dog realises who I am when I get
Yeah,
back eventually. It's tough. I can't come home at Christmas as well, which is tough. So
yeah,
gonna have to slog it out on the beach in Mexico for 3 weeks over Christmas.
that sounds tough.
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, man, it's you know what you're signing up for, and
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't been for everyone. And you've had a lot of boys leave for just multiple reasons. And look, they're still as closely regarded as the boys that have stayed. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
just not for everyone, especially
Absolutely.
nowadays with how prolific like it is to just talk about your mental health and stuff like that. You
Yeah,
can't be judging someone's situation when you're not in their shoes. You know what I mean?
absolutely not.
lots of things happen. A lot of things have happened, and yeah, it's just. I've actually got my first Lindenwood wedding in like 3 weeks' time, so that'll be good fun. So one of the boys is getting married. Yeah, so just little things like that, they all add up. But it's tough. But hey, as long as I have the emu and the kangaroo on my passport, mate, I'm only a few $1,000s away now. Jesus, mate, the flights of a few thousand. Mate, I looked at flights the other day, and nearly fell off my chair. And it was going to take me like 39 hours to get home.
Yeah. No, you're only 2 days and 5 Gs away.
Yeah, I'm only a few. Yeah, I don't know, mate. Honestly, it's tough, but it's worth it. It's worth every second.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, mate. That was I really do appreciate you diving in to look at your whole career, and in such a short space of time. I know I'm definitely going to get you on again. Because
cool,
you
mate.
can
Cool.
honestly talk the ears off anyone. But keep doing what you're doing over there and keep plugging away. And I do want to say this, not just because we are good mates, but genuinely are proud of the path you've taken. It would have been very easy to stop at when your Super Rugby goals were over and sort of just maybe throw the towel in, and with all the injuries you've had, but you've stuck with it, and you've got more than enough out of it right now. So I think you should definitely be proud of that. And the final thing I want to say is I hope you catch the bouquet at the wedding.
Yeah, mate, I'll be riding high. Don't worry about that, Jeremy Howe, over the top.
Yeah,
don't worry about that. In my Goodwill suit, so I don't mind it getting. I don't mind it
from Walmart.
I appreciate all about it. I appreciate the words, and like there is a bit of an age difference between us, and so it would be. I bet you would get a couple of questions as not to why you're friends with me, but I think one of the reasons why we get on so well is I've seen what you've done when you moved out, and you just sort of took those opportunities, and we can sort of have that in common. You know what I mean? We're both a bit nuts, so I do appreciate the words, mate. But no, this is a great little project you got going on, and I think it's gonna only go up from here. Hopefully, some sponsors that'll pay you.
Let's hope so. Let's maybe we get Lindenwood University to sponsor an episode. I can do like a little. I can do a little.
I'll bring you back another long sleeve.
Yeah, perfect. I'll do like a profile professor, professor of the week.
100%. I got a few names.
Perfect. All right, mate.
Mate, good man.
Thanks again. Stay safe, and we'll chat soon.
Good man.